Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this special meeting of the Board of Education this Tuesday, June 27th, 2017. This is the public hearing for the budget. I do declare a quorum is present. I call the meeting to order, and the media has been notified. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
Second.
There's a motion by Reverend Spann, a second by Mr. Ramsey to approve the agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The agenda is approved. We'll now move on to the public budget presentation for the public hearing.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Superintendent Jackson, and ladies and gentlemen of the board. This evening, we're going to have our second reading of the 2017-18 General Fund budget. Tonight's public hearing was advertised in the Post and Courier on Saturday, June 10th. As you know, our budget process is a multi-month or several months in the making. Our budget process involves, several stakeholders, whether it's at the school level, the district office level, our board members, as well as our cabinet. These discussions about our budget start taking place in January. And in March, the Berkeley County School District Budget Prep module was made available to all principals. This is the same system that we used last year that was created by our IT department. And basically what happens is our principals can log in to this system and see what their 16-17 budget is and the proposed 17-18 budget with a 2% increase across all services, supplies, and equipment. They also had the capability to request additional increases in services and supplies as well as personnel requests, but we asked that they justify those increases to strategic goals as well as focus areas. And of course, Cabinet began reviewing these budget requests back in March, and we've met several times since then, scrubbing through these different budgets, focusing on federal, state, and local mandates, as well as weekly reviewing allocations by school based on student projections. So it's been a constant moving target for us. And as we move through this PowerPoint, you'll see these school level and district level budget requests along with the board budget priorities in this PowerPoint. Okay. There we go. So what makes this budget unique? There we go. We're going to operate at the same millage rate this year at 163.8 for operations. That's a good thing. That means our taxpayers will not see any type of increase on their property taxes. Seem to be having a little difficulty, y'all. Okay. Additional funds are needed this particular school year because we're opening Philip Simmons High. And I just want to, make sure everybody knows that we're going to be opening 2 additional elementary schools next year in August. Not only are we looking at a step increase for our employees, but we're looking at a 2% mandated retirement employer portion on the retirement income, the retirement for South Carolina Retirement System, PORS, and ORP. This equates to about $3.2 million on our budget. And the way that it's structured this year is the expense is going to be absorbed by PEBA as well as our state allocations. Moving forward to next year, the governor recently signed into law that PEBA can institute a 1% increase until the year 2022. So that's going to be an additional $1.6 million for us as we move forward. Now, of course, as our employee base grows, that number will increase as well. And then we're also looking at a 3.3% health insurance increase that will take effect in January. And that's going to be about $905,000 on our budget, of which the state's only going to cover about $179,000 of that. The good news is we are looking at an increase in our base student cost of $75 per student. It's actually gone up to $24.25. And I know we've already talked about this, but if we could get the student increase that the Budget and Control Board has instituted, they're basically saying that it costs $2,984 to educate a student in our state. If we were able to get that kind of funding, we're looking at a $18.6 million additional funds in general fund. But we'll take the $75 increase. And this here is the list of our budget priorities that were set forth by our board. There's several items in here that we were able to actually build into our budget. For example, the support of no millage increase, special programs. You'll see in our budget presentation we have a STEAM initiative as well as engaging creative minds. The restoration of previously items that were reduced due to budget cuts. For example, we've taken a really aggressive approach with our supplies, and we're looking at an allocation that's based on a 135-day count to build classroom supplies for the new school year. Another thing we've been able to do is technology improvements to support these priorities, as well as transportation improvements and competitive compensation with our 1% cost of living adjustment across the board for all salaries and for all, employees. And here, I know we've seen this slide several times, but this is our revenue projection increase that we're seeing for the new year. Majority of it is coming from our local tax base, which includes personal property taxes as well as business property taxes and manufacturing. Unfortunately, we're not seeing an increase in fee and lieu at this point. We're seeing an increase on the state employer fringe benefit side of 1.5. We're also seeing, based upon the base student cost increase, we're seeing an additional $3.3 million coming in from the state allocations. And then we've added a line item in our budget to project growth of 750 students. So that will add an additional $1.8 million to our state allocations that we're projecting. And then on the new property tax relief funding, that's a line item that's given to us by the state to help offset the funding shortage due to Act 388. And then you've got the new teacher salary increase in fringe. That's for our brand new teachers that are coming on board at $179,000. So we're looking at a total revenue increase for our budget of $19,647,032. And this is how we're basically breaking down how we want to be able to spend that money. Looking at the district-wide step increase at $2.2 million. We've not factored in the retirement increase, based upon what PEBA has told us they're going to cover and the EFA allocation coming in. We've added a line item for the health insurance expense that'll take effect in January, and that's $905,000. And then the 2% increase across the board for all services, supplies, and equipment district-wide at 2.7. The opening of Philip Simmons High at 2.4, and yes, that does include some salaries and benefits, as well as just the expense of opening a brand new school. And then we're increasing our fund balance by $2.3 million in preparation for the opening of Bowens Corner Elementary and Fox Bank Elementary in August of 2018. And then we have our board priorities at $2.1 million, school level budget requests at $3.5 million, and district level budget requests at $3.2 million. And we've got slides to break down those last three line items. So we're looking at total funding requests of $19.3 million overall. Now this is where we list our board priorities. As you can tell, we have the district-wide 1% cost of living adjustment at 1.9. Again, that includes every employee in our school district. And then in support of the technology initiatives, we're looking at adding 2 instructional technologists to technology. And you'll notice that there it says revenue neutral. And what that means is either another fund is taking care of it, like at risk, or it's a position that's already in general fund that may be moving from instruction and accountability to technology. That's what that means by revenue neutral. And then we've got the special programs, the Engaging Creative Minds, at $105,000, and then the purchase of an additional activity bus for transportation at $100,000. So our board priority is $2.1 million. Okay, At our last, at the first reading, there was a request made to please list all these different school level requests for the different positions, to list them out by school. So this is what we've done. These are all based on projections at this point. As you know, once school starts and we have 10-day movement and 10-day enrollment, these could change. But basically, we're looking at, the first line item, the teacher assistants. You'll notice this line is bold, the lines that are bolded and italicized have changed since our first reading, so I didn't want to bring that to your attention. So on the 5K teacher assistants, we're looking at placing 4 of those with the schools listed there. The administrative assistants, we're looking at placing 3 at those schools. Remember, administrative assistants are employees that are paid on a teacher salary schedule with additional days, and they assist our principals and our assistant principals at the school level. It's not a secretarial type job. And then a new line item we have is assistant principal, 1.5, 0.5 going to Berkeley High School, and then an FTE or 1 position going to Whitesville Elementary. There again, you'll see it says revenue neutral. That's another position that was within general fund that's moving from instruction and accountability to Whitesville Elementary. We've got our computer lab assistants. We've got 4 of those. We've got the 3 custodians at Cane Bay High. And then you'll see a long list of guidance counselors that are identified as a 0.5 FTE that are going to be split between the schools listed there, mostly elementary schools. And then we've got 2 nurses at Cane Bay Elementary and Goose Creek Primary. Office clerks at Berkeley Intermediate, Nexton Elementary, and Whitesville. We've got a related art teacher that's going to be split between Hanahan Elementary, Barrington Elementary, and Nexton Elementary. And although there's not a total on this line item, these positions are equivalent to about $1.2 million. And here we'll continue the school level budget request. We've got a drama theater teacher at Cane Bay Middle. They have a new program at that school coming up. And we've got a music teacher that's going to be split between Hanahan Elementary, Barrington Elementary, and Nexton Elementary, as well as an other related arts teacher that hasn't been identified yet, but we know that this person is going to, or this individual is going to be split between Goose Creek Primary, Nexton Elementary, and Sangaree Intermediate. And then we've got a strings teacher that's going to be split between College Park Middle and Sangaree Middle. And then our next line item is the 19 FTE teacher allocations that are going to be split across the schools you see there, which are mostly the Cane Bay area. And then the last line is our special ed teachers with 12 additional, FTEs that are going to be split. I know it's kind of confusing to look at the school and then the 0.5, but I wanted to show you how they were going to be split and break it out that way. So there again, the total school budget level request is $3.5 million. Based upon the last allocation calculation they did last week. Okay. And then we have our district level budget request. I know we've seen this slide several times, but just supporting Berkeley Middle College at Trident Tech with additional supplies and technology, adding a digital communications specialist position in communications, an insurance technician position in HR, and then teacher mentoring initiative in HR, as well as implementing the South Carolina teaching standards. And then the next few lines, you'll see information technology. There's several, positions that are being added, to support the technology initiative, as well as supporting all of the Chromebook purchases and needing, infrastructure in place to support that. And then we've got the STEAM initiative. There's 2 line items for that, for consultants, and then the summer professional development at Daniel Island. And then we've got additional 8 additional positions for maintenance. And then for federal compliance reasons, we've got 10 additional ESOL teachers, and you'll see those sites the way they're broken out as well. We've got our safety and security officer, as well as a vehicle for this individual. And then we've got seven additional special ed teachers listed at those locations. And then we've added a line item in general fund for our Medicaid shortage that we're projecting for the upcoming year. And I'm sure we'll talk more about that as the year goes on, as the fiscal year goes on. And then we've got McKinney Vento transportation, which is for our homeless students. And then 2 additional bus drivers and 2 additional bus assistants for a total district level budget request of $3.2 million. Excuse me, $3.5 million. And then this is our budget calendar. We have come a long way in the last few months, and it's been a privilege to help our district get through this. And tonight we've got our public hearing and hopefully our approval later this evening. So with that, I will open up with any questions or discussion, or if you'd like for me to go back to any slides.
One of the questions that I had on the supporting documentation under the Board of Education, we have $190,000 in other.
You talking about the Excel spreadsheet?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So the total for the Board of Education is $520,000. So I was really curious what that other was and would like to allocate that to something more useful. I don't know if it's travel. I'm not sure. I don't want to allocate money that's already for something, but I feel like, or I personally think the board would rather buy a bus than travel somewhere. But I'm not.
That is a consistent expenditure. So if you don't mind, I can, in between our next meeting, I can run next door and get some detail history to share with you what those expenses are. Okay. I believe it's going to be South Carolina business organizations that y'all are a part of, and your travel associated with that. But I can definitely get you more literature, more documentation on that.
If it's that, maybe we want to trim it back. But I was trying to look through the spreadsheet of things that we can do to contribute to kids and not to us. And the first number, which was inflated, really shocked me.
I understand. We've taken care of that.
So we edited that. So all of our unemployment benefits were underneath the Board of Education, yes, which was like $3.3 million. I was like,
oh, wow.
I'd like my cut, please. But that was not right. But so now we're down to $520, and only $67,000 of salaries, and then a little bit of $9,000 in supplies. Anyway, I'd like to pare that number down to just what we need, and if that other isn't really valuable, I'd like to take at least half of that and buy a bus.
Okay.
Is that an action item?
It'll be amendments in the second, when we actually have an official motion in the second meeting, but I didn't give Jackie a chance. I'm putting her on the spot, so I didn't give her a chance to research that 190 before we're in front of you now.
This was added to what we saw earlier.
Yeah, this spreadsheet.
This was added today.
It was added over the weekend or Friday. I just didn't get a chance.
Documentation.
The addendum to the information that we got on board docs, that was not a part of the original information that was sent out.
It came on Friday.
So that's why I'm questioning it. It's news to me. I haven't seen this until tonight.
Okay.
And I looked at it again today.
Yes.
So at the last meeting, I asked for a section by section or a category by category. So Jackie added a category by category this I think Friday. But we won't actually take action until the other meeting. But that kind of stood out to me as that board number and what we can do to pare down what the board is spending, put money on other things. The other question I had was related to landscaping and full-time people in maintenance and all that. And I know we have discussed that, but I just didn't know how that was reflected here.
It is not reflected, but I know it's something that will need to be reflected when we actually close the books on Thursday and roll over into the new budget. It's not reflected in your spreadsheet, but it's basically moving it from a purchase services account to supplies and benefits with some leftover money.
So at the, when we do the official reading, will that need to be an amendment to the budget, or
It can be, but I will make sure that it happens the way it needs to on Thursday.
It doesn't have to be an amendment. It's really a function of finance to reallocate those funds. So in the second meeting, as long as the board approves the overall budget internally, we know that action is taking place, and it can be a function of finance. So it doesn't need a board approval.
Okay.
I have a question about the special ed additions. In one place there's 12 additions, and another place there are additional 7. So there's 19 total, I'm assuming?
That's correct. That's a total of 19. I believe the 12 is what we absolutely needed, and the 7 was would put us in the right place of where we need. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Wolf. The correct place of where we need to be in order to implement the proper programs as Dr. Wolf needs. So that's where you get your total of 19. I think this is the first time that we've added that type of those amount of FTEs in the general budget.
It's very proactive. I was just questioning why they were in different places.
One was an actual need. We absolutely need to have these allocations, and the additional 7 would put us in a place where we were very comfortable and really needed to be for our programs and provide the services for our students.
Okay.
Any other questions or concerns?
The only question I have, was it $890,000 is what the state recoups back to us relative to what we lose with Act 388? Was that the number?
No, it's actually a lot more than that. It's
Okay.
actually about $37 million that we get from them. This was just the increase for the new year. It's an additional $812,000.
Okay.
The assistant principal increases, was that because of increased enrollment? Does
Yep.
anybody know?
Those increases were formula driven based on our allocation formulas. Yes, sir.
In line with Southern Association accreditation standards, or our own?
Yes, sir. That's
Okay.
correct.
All right, thank you.
What is your amount of the total budget for this year?
It is $278,324,914.
Repeat that for me real quick.
Yes,
Did
sir. $278,324,914.
Thank you.
You talk about new buses for this year. How many did you mention?
The activity buses,
Yes.
we have 2 that are going to be paid out of general fund. We have 1 that's going to be paid out of, transportation. We have another one that's going to be paid, for Phillips Women's High. And then we have 1 that's going to be paid out of 8% new money. So we're getting 3 this year on the activity buses.
Are we still working on a teacher mentoring initiative, Mr. Jackson? I see the 130,000 there, as opposed to the 2 additional slots that we talked about earlier. So that's an initiative we're working on, trying to implement.
Yes, sir. As requested, the funds that were allocated to those positions are being reallocated for the Teacher Mentor Initiative. The details of which we're still trying to work those out.
Good.
But yes, sir, we are moving towards that initiative.
And the other 3 that were current will those funds that budgeted for those individuals will be a part of that as well?
Has the potential to be a part of that. We want to look and see what the initial program looks like with the funds that were allocated, that were going to be allocated for the 2 additional positions, to make sure that we have that correct first before we expand the program.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? I hate to put you on the spot, but if
It's
you don't
okay.
mind looking up what that 190 is before
I will.
the next meeting. We did not have anyone register prior to the meeting for public comment. No.
Okay, thank
So I
you.
guess there is no public comment. So we'll move on to the next agenda item. Item number 3, which is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second?
Second.
There's a motion by Ms. Condor, a second by Mr. Ramsey. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Public hearing is adjourned.